Well, I think if we look at the third major part of Socrates' defense speech, it actually runs from the end of his interrogation of Miletus until the end of what he has to say after he's found guilty. After he is found guilty of the charges, and he is, he's able to to say something about what he thinks his punishment should be. And it's pretty funny, actually. But at the end, he says perhaps what is the most famous thing that maybe it's the most famous thing that anyone has ever said. Not just in philosophy, but ever in the world's literature. Um, this comes at the very end before he is sentenced to death. And, maybe you can understand why, but considering the kind of things that he said to the jury. But he says, someone will say, yes, Socrates, but cannot you hold your tongue? And then you may go into a foreign city and no one will interfere with you. Like Socrates, like he understands that it may not be all that difficult to get away from these charges. All he has to do is to stop doing what he does, which is ask people what they know. Perhaps understanding that the jury and everyone else kind of knows that this trial is a fiasco. That is absurd, and they want kind of maybe like him in a way. Who wouldn't like Socrates? And they want a way out here, and maybe exile would be a more would be a reasonable accommodation here. If he were to say, "Well, if you let me go, or if you find me, you found me guilty, but if you sentence me to exile, I'll just go to a foreign city." But he says, yes, Socrates, but cannot you hold your tongue? And then you may go into a foreign city and no one will interfere with you. Now I have great difficulty in making you understand my answer to this. For if I tell you that this would be a disobedience to a divine command, and therefore that I cannot hold my tongue, you will not believe that I am serious. Like Socrates really does take himself seriously in the sense that this is how he has decided to live his life, in the pursuit of knowledge. And his way of pursuing knowledge is having these conversations in which he asks people questions about what they know. And he takes this with the utmost seriousness. It is not just a pastime. And if I say again that the greatest good of man, now look how big he's getting here, right? The greatest good of man is daily to converse about virtue, and all that concerning which you hear me examining myself and others, and the life which is unexamined is not worth living, that you are still less likely to believe. I mean, that is the heart and soul of the thing. And the reason that this is really the end of the third part is that he's made a certain claim about how he thinks we should live our lives. And that claim implies that the unexamined life is not worth living. What a claim. What a large claim. And of course, the implication of that is that he has lived the examined life, which is exactly what he has done in this third part, is to defend his choices about what sort of life he has chosen for himself. And that really does begin up here when he says, "And are you not ashamed, Socrates, of a course of life which is likely to bring you to an untimely end?" Kind of knowing, maybe suspecting strongly what the verdict will be. And so he has defended his way of life. That is, and it's it's a fair question. He's in a court. He's being accused of being a criminal. And so he feels called upon to defend his life choices, to say that what he has done is not dishonorable. What he has done is not criminal. It is not something that should bring him into ill repute. He should not be seen as a disgrace. That what he has done is not only a personal choice that he has made to say that the best way to live your life is to seek the best life, to ask questions about how we should live. That a human being doesn't just live, the human being tries to live the best way that he can. And that philosophy is really just a way of asking questions about how we should live, about what is truth, what is beauty, what does it mean to be a human being, and what is the good, what is the true good life for a human being. And it's pretty astounding that in this he compares himself to the great hero Achilles from the Iliad, where he is said that he is like Achilles. That Achilles knew that if he killed Hector, who slew his friend Patroclus, that he would die, but he felt that it was his duty to do it, to avenge the death of his friend. And so this is kind of the greatest hero in Greek poetry, and he's basically comparing himself to him, saying that he also has a duty, and that is to continue doing philosophy, and that even if it now at the end of his life becomes inconvenient, that he cannot abandon his post. And he actually reminds them that he fought in several battles for Athens during the Peloponnesian War, which is kind of an interesting thing to mention. But it ultimately ends up with him, of course, being found guilty. But him saying that, perhaps there are all sorts of punishments they could give him, but he basically says, don't sentence me to stop doing philosophy. Don't send me into exile where I would not be able to do my thing, because I would rather die, because the unexamined life, which is what the sentence would be, is simply not worth living.